Welcome to the Becoming babyREADY podcast, your podcast for queer family planning. My name is Sam, and throughout this podcast, you'll hear me have conversations with professionals who work alongside people who want to start and grow their families, as well as parents of intentionally created families. Everyone I speak to identifies as being part of the 2S LGBTQIA+ community. This is your opportunity to learn answers to questions you didn't even know you had. When I chatted with Stevy and Michelle, they were visiting some of Michelle's family in the eastern seaboard of the United States, but typically you can find them in Adelaide, Australia. We talked about their family creation journey with reciprocal IVF following endometriosis diagnosis for both of them. They now have a beautiful 3-month-old whose voice you may be able to hear from time to time throughout the entire conversation. Enjoy. Welcome. Today I'm really excited to be sitting here chatting with Michelle and Stevie and their 3-month-old wee baby that I can see at the bottom of my screen, but you listening can't see. Just trust me. This is an adorable baby. In any case, welcome to the two of you and the babe. Tell us about who you are and all the members of your family.
Okay. So I'm Michelle, and I am originally from the US and moved to New Zealand for a couple of years, and then been in Australia for the past 5, which is when I met Stevie. And then Stevie can introduce herself.
Yeah, I'm Stevie. I was born in New Zealand and raised in Australia from the age of 2. Together we have Ziggy, and then I had Arlo from a previous relationship. And Mama Misha's taken on the role as other mum.
As we do. I have a stepchild, and it's a fun bonus role to be in.
Yeah.
Excellent.
It has its challenges. I think he's 5, so it's nearly 6, but yeah, he's challenging everything at the moment.
That's sort of, they're getting to an age where they know how to make some decisions, not necessarily best quality decisions, but they know how to make some decisions, so they feel like they should make all the decisions, right? And
Yeah.
power.
They know better than us at this stage.
Oh yeah, they know everything.
Just so you know, since mine are in their 20s and my stepdaughter's 18, I don't think it changes until they're through high school, so just buckle up.
Appreciate that.
Pour a glass of wine, relax. No, I'm just kidding. They do come to you for the big things, but sometimes you let them, when you know they won't get hurt, you let them make their mistakes and you just talk to them about natural consequences. And
yeah, we try our best.
Well, that's it. You just try your best. And I feel like with my the older two, that my boys, we talked about natural consequences more than punishments from a very young age, to the point where, 3 years old, I remember my youngest saying, I said to him, what will happen if you do that? Well, I'll have a cons. Like he just that's what was going to happen.
Yeah.
He'll love it in his 20s hearing me talk about him, imitate him like that. Anyways. There are so many different ways that we can create our families in the queer community, and there's a lot of decisions that need to be made along the way. Can you tell us how you chose to make your family?
Yeah, I think we both knew that kids were in our future when we first met. That was a conversation that we had pretty early on. I'm 32 now, Michelle's 30. And then after a few conversations with, I'm a nurse at a hospital, so I was lucky enough to have conversations with OB-GYNs, and it was pretty evident that we had endometriosis, so we felt like time pressure was a big thing for us. And then I think we just naturally went the IVF route. Do you want to talk about your back?
Yeah, so I've had 2 back surgeries, and I've just never had that desire to carry a child. I don't have that in me. I don't have, people would even ask when Stevie was pregnant, like if I felt like I was missing out or if I regret my decision, because Stevie carried my egg, and I was very happy with my decision. And I don't know, I still wake up sometimes with back pain, so also the added fact of trying to think of carrying extra weight just never seemed like something I wanted to do. Where Stevie loved her pregnancy with our eldest, so she was very happy to carry. And then I guess we were chatting about which embryo we'd carry first, but that also kind of happened naturally, I guess, because all those of Stevie's eggs. So we were like, oh, then I'll have one. And yeah, I don't know. It gets very complex, as you know. If this is your podcast, it gets lots of decisions and things. I think our biggest learning through it all, though, was like we started thinking about it because it is essentially a very scientific thing. But then when you think of families and you think of love and bringing up kids, our brains, I don't know, it seems like you want things to seem to fit in a certain position, but they don't really need to, because then having a family, for us at least, came quite naturally. It didn't actually matter whose genetics was what. Like if you raise a kid with love and nurture, those kind of pieces don't matter. But when you're starting that process, I don't know, we were like, things need to kind of even out, or what if we need to have a third one, and so then the donor can match this and that, and it got complex, yeah, quite quickly. So breaking it down
but it didn't.
into steps was important.
Yeah. I was happy to carry. I'm still happy to carry. But in saying that, like, it came with its difficulties getting pregnant and doing the whole process and choosing a donor. And so yeah, I don't know, we made a decision that was good for all of us, and I think the best way that we could create a baby together.
And at the end of the day, that's all that matters, right? Everybody else's stories are important so that people can learn from one another, but our histories and our stories have to be our own stories to tell that speak from our soul, right?
Yeah. And I think culturally, that I'm from New Zealand, so it's quite normal within our culture to take in people that are family but not like directly related. So my mum was raised by her great aunt, but she always knew who her mum and dad were. So in terms of carrying an embryo that wasn't my genetic, it wasn't a big deal for me.
You knew the love was there. It didn't matter about biology.
100%. I look at it, I'm like, that's my kid. Like,
and absolutely, that's your kid.
Yeah.
For sure. But it is a piece that I think that many outside of the queer community struggle with, because they don't, and I mean, in a cisgendered straight couple, there only is one uterus to use. So there isn't a decision about, but women, people born with uteruses, I shouldn't just say women, but people born with uteruses are conditioned from a very young age that you're supposed to want to use that uterus to have a baby. And there's a significant percentage of people who don't want to. And there's an equally large number of people who do it, but didn't want to do it. They felt like they were supposed to. So I love that in our community, especially in a 2-uterus household, that you have the opportunity to make the decision that works best for your family and honors then who you both are in the dynamic.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's talks of a third, and if Michelle would carry, because I had to go through a fair amount of crap. Like, I went through menopause for 2 months, medically induced menopause, to give us the best chances of forming a pregnancy, basically. And that was just, it wreaked havoc on my body and my mental health and everything like that. And Michelle basically said, like, I can't have you go through that again. Like, it was hard on our relationship. It was hard for her to watch me go through it. But then watching her struggle with her back on a day-to-day basis, that's like, well, you know. And labor was pretty quick with this one. So am I going to make her go through 20 plus hours of labor for her first pregnancy, or, you know, take one for the team?
I feel like it's just slightly more involved than taking one for the team, but I appreciate what you're trying to say.
Yeah. Maybe scratch that one.
So if you both have uteruses and you both have ovum, then you don't have sperm between the two of you. So can you talk about how you made the decision to fertilize your eggs?
Yes.
I love that that laughter starts. So I feel like this is a story.
Yeah. First we looked locally because we thought it might be cheaper. And then we worked out that it would only be like $100 or $200 cheaper to do it locally. And that's through finding a donor ourselves. The actual clinic, I only had like one or two, and the wait list was so long. So then, and Michelle and I both agreed like it'll be uncomfortable if we accidentally bump into them on the street. Like Adelaide's a small town.
Mm-hmm.
So then we chose to go through the bank that the clinic used, which was the Californian Cryobank.
Mm-hmm.
Criteria wise, we wanted a tall, healthy, smart specimen. And then like the amount that are available to the clinic is a fraction of what's actually on the website.
Oh.
And then the demand is so high for Caucasian sperm because people, I guess, want babies to look like them. But we weren't fussed, so we went with the healthiest. So like we had our criteria and we found those that met them, and then we went for the healthiest one, I guess.
And every fertility clinic in Adelaide has different donors that they go from. So we actually started out with one fertility clinic, and they told us that we would meet with like a donor specialist that would have an interview with us, and then from that interview they would give us 4 options to pick from, and that was it, and you had to select from those 4. So we very quickly kind of changed clinics, and that wasn't the entire reason, but that was a large part of the reason, because I was like, there are so many people out in this world, how are you going to tell me I have 4 options?
Yeah.
So I guess that's worth noting is that it also depends on your clinic and the availability. Whereas, our clinic luckily had that option for us to where it was like almost like online dating, but for sperm, you have like all of this information available to you and all these photos, and you can kind of select what's best for you. Whereas I know that not all clinics kind of have that luxury.
Mm-hmm.
So that was nice for us to be able to then have options.
Definitely.
And were you able to then sort of see baby pictures or more current pictures and hear their voice and read their essay and that kind of thing? So you felt you don't know them, but you feel a little bit less disconnected, or they feel a little less arbitrary, right?
Yeah, and you could pick up like the values that the donor holds as well, which was important for us just to kind of understand like where they come from and what led them to donate. So Australia has their own laws around that the donor has to have freely donate. They can't receive any money for it, and that they can only donate up to 10 families within the country. And they had certain criteria as well, and I think just having that process in place as well kind of helped us make our decision feel comfortable and confident with what we were doing. It just gave you, it felt like you kind of knew them. The donors can choose if they want to put adult pictures up or just childhood photos, which most of them was childhood photos, but you can hear their voice and personal essays and lots of background information. So that was nice.
Because ultimately, presumably, most heterosexual couples do have a conversation about health history and family health history and that kind of thing. So those are the types of answers you want to get if you're going to ask questions or could ask questions. So for them to offer that, it's important to have that, just a general idea, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And even like us talking about Michelle's history and my family's history as well, like we do have to bring that up, and I didn't ever think that was something that we would ever address, because it's just like, I don't know, it's so scientific, and I guess it takes a lot of the surprise element out of things, and
there are options available to have an open donor or like a known donor and that kind of thing. You didn't pick a friend, you picked somebody off the internet, but does your child still have the option when they get older to be able to reach out? Is it, I guess, open or closed, I think is the phraseology used.
Yeah, I think legally in South Australia, the option has to be that when the child reaches at the age of 18, they can reach out to the donor. And so they have to, like, the donor has to be aware of that and then agree, I guess. But we went into the process knowing that we're going to raise our baby with the awareness of having like a donor and two mums.
Yeah.
And like having that language in our household and making it, I guess, our norm.
And they have mentioned as well, like I think it's Australian wide, that they have like a database of other families that have used the same donor, to where you can opt in if you wanted to contact families of the same donor to connect the, I guess, donor babies. So that is an option. Siblings. So that's an option.
Yeah, and I think we did sign up to that through the clinic, but not the Australia database just yet. But no notifications just yet. So.
But part of it too becomes maybe at this point, I mean, yes, you want them to know, obviously it's a two-mom household. And it's going to be then using words like donor conceived and that kind of thing as just a common vernacular in your house means that as your children grow and are asked questions, it's easy for them to answer it because it's just commonplace conversation for them. As much as it's easy for somebody to say, this is my mom and this is my dad, it's easy for a child to learn from the same age. These are my moms and I was donor conceived. I don't have a dad, that kind of thing. So that makes life easier, right?
I think even having a 5-year-old who's got two mums and a dad, like we have to say, oh, like your brother has got a donor, and we have to use, you know, like age appropriate terms where we had the eggs but we needed flour. I have the oven, so we bought flour, you know, just things like that. And he seems to be getting a handle on it sometimes, but most of the times we have to correct him, like, no, your dad has nothing to do with your baby brother. So
but I think that that's the same in any case of separation or divorce, where there's just another parent that comes in. What's the role that individual plays, and how do I identify? Because when I'm only 5 or 6, I'm categorizing everything's in a box. It's either a toy or it's something to eat, or it's, you know, so we're categorizing everything. So a parental role, if you're not the one who had the baby, then how do I? So that, I mean, it makes sense, and just, you know, correcting gently and, you know, assuming good intent, because at that age, there's no malice intended with the language that they're using. Then it makes that just makes the whole process that much easier, right?
Yeah, I mean, our eldest started school this year, and you can hear the kids in his classroom being like, oh, there are those mums, or like, you know, he's got two mums, but it's never like he's not being made fun of or anything like that. Whereas when we were younger, it certainly was not as accepted or spoken about, or as well received, I guess.
Fair. And you used reciprocal IVF for this pregnancy. And so you both have eggs on ice. Is that what I'm understanding?
We've actually they're all embryos on ice. We just went ahead and fertilized them all.
Yeah.
Excellent. That makes sense.
But Michelle has got a ton more than me. She's a little fertile myrtle over here.
Oh gosh, please don't say that. Oh, geez.
As long as you're not using her uterus, she's fine.
Yeah. I guess it was hard. I started my cycle first, so I went through the egg collecting process before she did by a few weeks, but prior to that we both had surgery for endometriosis, where you were stage 3 because it had adhered to her bowel, and I was stage 4, and then I had, I can never say it, adenomyosis as well, or a bulky uterus, as they say. So that sort of set the path up for our treatments. Out of the 3 mature eggs they collected for me, we made 2 embryos,
Okay.
which was like disheartening, but I guess we're lucky to get anything.
I was going to say, when you only get 3 that you harvest, to have 2 that are healthy embryos out of that's actually pretty unusual.
It is, yeah.
Frankly.
Yes, yeah, I do have to look at it, yeah, in hindsight, because I was prepared for 0. Just knowing that everything gets halved.
I guess that's where you could talk about, I guess, the shock factor, I guess, of when we first started, and culturally, you know, even you've never had any issues getting pregnant, and culturally Maldives are born to breed, and then to find out that your levels were really low was difficult.
It was a big mental game. I guess, like, yeah, Kiwis, New Zealanders, they are very fertile, I should say. Like, my mum's one of 7 children. I'm an only child, but that was due to other medical reasons. But there's like 46 first cousins, basically. So, yeah, we're not a small family. So then when I learned that I was having issues, like, it was a big mind game. Like, what do you mean? And then when I'd go into scans throughout my stimulation, it was like, oh, your ovaries are pretty quiet. So it was like the endometriosis surgery was validation that my pain was real.
Right.
And I wasn't going crazy, and I wasn't overreacting, and it wasn't my appendix. But then, yeah, it made itself known that it had caused trouble to my fertility. So that was just, it was hard to deal with, knowing that I've had my period since I was like 11. So it's like 19 years of endometriosis, basically, and not being investigated because women's abdominal pain's never taken seriously.
No.
To then having 2 embryos, it was just, it was hard for me as a partner to be happy for Michelle and not envious.
Right.
Like, of course, like, you want the best outcome for both of you, but yeah, that was another aspect, I guess.
I think that's, quite honestly, I want to say 2 things. One is, I think that is very normal to feel that way, but it's also unusual for people to actually say the words out loud. So I give kudos to you for acknowledging how you're feeling, not just to yourself, but saying the words out loud and not giving them power over you.
Yeah.
Because you get your power back by speaking your truth, by saying how you're feeling, because you can't work through it if nobody else knows that you're worried or feeling that way.
And then I've got to give credit to Michelle as well, because she let me feel those feelings without any judgment. Like, she was right by my side. I'm emotional. I'm postpartum.
I was say that it's postnatal stuff.
Yeah.
It's a re-regulation of hormones or something.
Something along those lines. But yeah. But then, in saying that, Michelle had to do most of her needles alone because I work shift work. So there was another aspect for her to go through. I suppose you were alone for a majority of it.
Yeah, I think I don't know. Some people say the needles really aren't that bad, but it was like on my mind every morning when I woke up was like, when is it coming? And it was always at night, because the way ours was done, I think the first needle that we did, it didn't necessarily matter as long as it was after like 6 o'clock. But then the second one, they said, oh, you might as well wait until later because it needs to be done by like 8 or 9 p.m. or something like that. And it's very difficult to just stick yourself with needles every night by yourself. I usually am asleep by that time as well, so I was trying to like stay awake, and it makes your days feel a lot longer. It can be lonely at times, but I guess when you know when you have your reason for doing it, it also makes it a lot easier when you're like reminded of your purpose and the outcomes of what you're hoping for. It makes it doable, and hopefully, we're very aware that we're very lucky in the grand scheme of things that hoping that we only need to do one egg collection each to get the outcome that we want as a family. So we're very aware that the process wasn't enjoyable by any means, but the fact that we've only had to do it once, we were very lucky.
Yeah, right. Hold on for just a moment. We'll be right back. You know about babyREADY because you're listening to this podcast, so you know that we are all about queer family planning and helping you have the family of your dreams. But did you know that we don't abandon you once your baby arrives? We actually offer parenting coaching as well, and that's not just for the newborn phase, although we are there for that, but it's through toddlerhood and young children, tweens, and even through the teen years. When you need someone unbiased to lend an ear so that they can hear where your struggles truly are and help you come up with a path and a plan that feels truly right for you and your individual family, don't hesitate to reach out. We are always happy to be there for you. Visit us at www.babyready.info for more information. I can only just imagine what the household was like when you were both going through the process of regulating your hormones for egg retrieval. Like I did, like honestly, that to be a fly on the wall.
Yeah. Before our egg collections, we had actually tried to sync our period through using the pill, so that we would only use one vial instead of 2 vials. Oh.
I would not recommend that to anybody. Let's bold that on there.
You know what? Just use the extra vial.
Yeah, just pay the money. It's fine.
That was worse than the egg collection. That was
a lot. Yeah. But speaking of money, I don't know how I believe Australia has a system more similar to ours in Canada, that it's a publicly funded healthcare system. Is that right?
Yes. Medicare. Yeah.
So how does all of this work? Is any part of this journey, the collection, the medications, the treatments, any of it covered by your Medicare, or is it still out of pocket, all of it?
Our first appointment is bulk billed, and that's just get to know you with your specialist. From there, they pay a rebate, so you'll pay up front and then you get a portion back, but we're still out of pocket at least $100 per appointment. And then if you have private health insurance, you have to pay an excess, and that only really covered your theatre fees for like egg collections. Everything else was out of pocket. You got a bit of a rebate if you qualified. So if you have a low AMH, like a certain level, you qualify for a rebate. If you have endometriosis, you qualify for a rebate. But if there's like no qualifying factors, you pay out of pocket completely. So I'm a part of a few Facebook support groups, and women are up to like $100,000 out of pocket, and they still don't have their baby yet. So it is. Yeah, some places in Australia are bulk billed, but not where we were. Mm-hmm. So we, I think, ended up paying $30 for both of us.
That was just for the process itself, not including the other stuff.
Not including sperm.
Not including sperm or the appointments, or they wanted you to get lipids, which we kind of did.
Yeah. I don't know.
30 minimum.
Yeah, minimum 30,000, but we got a rebate back of about, I want to say 12.
Still not chump change.
No, it's not. And like you have to have the money up front. So it was a wild process, but also it's hard to differentiate if your clinic is a money-making facility, which of course it is, it's a business, or if like things are actually necessary for you and your journey. So I guess you have to go with your gut for a lot of it, but also put a lot of trust in these people
Do your research.
Yeah, a lot of research.
And well, like you say, when you went to one clinic and you were made to feel like it wasn't a good fit, you went somewhere else because you needed to be able to feel like you were in the safest possible environment when you were going to be making yourself as vulnerable as you could possibly be.
Absolutely. And it's hard because the clinic that we left were thousands of dollars cheaper than the clinic that we went with. But it's just not a risk that we were willing to take. Like, are we going to pay the money in multiple cycles anyway, or are we just going to pay the money and hopefully be successful sooner?
And it is like, people need to, I think, consider the cost and whether it's cheaper, and still knowing what that business is kind of their results, or understanding how to read data as well, to see if the data they're providing is, accurate and up to date in their kind of their history. Because another reason we ended up leaving that clinic is that our kind of like health history wasn't even investigated. So we had our ultrasounds done, and it was actually my scan at first that they had suspected that I had adenomyosis. And because Stevie's a nurse, had asked one of the OBGYNs at work what that even meant. Because when we asked our doctor there, they said, "Oh, I'm not sure, but it's fine. It'll be totally okay."
It won't make a difference.
Yeah, and was trying to like set us up for our next appointment to then pick a donor. And that's when I kind of said, "This something doesn't seem right. Let's get a second opinion." So I think sometimes those clinics, maybe not all of them, but it kind of seemed in that instance that it might have been cheaper, but we may or may not have been successful on our first one. So ultimately, would it have been cheaper? Maybe, but maybe not.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And I think a lot of expectations around IVF, like social media is massive at the moment involving IVF, and I think a lot of people are, bringing awareness, but at the same time sort of glorifying it a little bit and making it seem fun, which is just how I perceive it. Obviously not everyone's going to perceive it that way, but what we went through was not as fun as social media made it out to be. And the time frame of things are so sped up on the internet these days, but the time frame of us like starting to actually getting to the point where we can transfer took a year.
Right.
And I wasn't expecting that.
No, because like you say, when you watch somebody else's journey online, they only show you the highlight reel, right? And so you think, well, then you do it, it happens, it's baby's instant, like boom, boom, that's all we need to do. So it's hard to pack your patience in that.
Yeah, and I think people think that like science equals a baby, but it doesn't.
Sadly, no.
Not guaranteed.
No, sadly, no. Are there any words of caution? I mean, you certainly explained a couple already, just listening to your gut and asking more questions, but are there any other words of caution you would share with people who are hoping to go down this path, that about any part of the process?
I think you've got to protect your heart a lot. I think I was overly cautious, and I took a lot of joy from Michelle throughout the process, in terms of like stages of actually becoming pregnant. And then I'm like, no, can't get excited, have to wait till the ultrasound, or no, can't get excited, have to wait till the heartbeat, like just things like that. I don't know.
I think I would just then again reiterate kind of what you had just hit on before that, around like the glorifiedness of seeing stuff online, which I'm not that much online to know what people see, but it is long and it's lonely and it's a ton of appointments, like especially after transfer. I felt like Stevie was living there getting the blood test done. It's very difficult to go through the process and have a full-time job. So if you don't have a flexible employer, like you need to have that conversation straight up, because like you're gonna have to take some time off or find out some way to get there. At least in our journey, it was like, I think you were there like every day almost. It's a lot of time, and I guess not being the one that's going through all of those blood tests or carrying and going through it, it is, sometimes it's difficult to relate what they're going through or the way their body's reacting, and just trying to be there, or sitting in the bathroom while they take a shower thinking this is so exhausting. Like, you gotta find a way to still participate and be present. And sometimes that's difficult, especially when it's a process you've never been through before. So just being open to being able to have those hard conversations, because you are about to start a family, and we have a 3-month-old now, and it does not get easier. So the more you can talk openly, the better you can kind of work together to try to make sure, you're working together as a team, or finding out your strengths and working to those, or just finding how to be there, even if you don't need to be saying anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes that silent presence is the biggest gift you can give, right? Just giving of yourself and your time.
Yeah.
And I think just finding ways to make it special. Like, obviously, you don't just get a feeling and then pee on a stick and, oh, surprise. But I still managed to surprise Michelle as best as I could. I got a scratchy, like a fake scratchy, that said that we're pregnant. And I told her that I was just going in for like a normal. They were just checking my progesterone, I think, because it was a little bit low. So I was doing that every second day. And I asked them to bring forward my HCG test. So I did that and just told her, don't worry about it, I'm just going for my progesterone. She's like, should I come? I was like, no, don't come. And then we got the phone call, and we're sitting there at like having a coffee. I'm trying not to react. And I was like, okay, yeah, thank you. And then got off the phone, and then I was like, oh, I bought her some scratchies. And then I let her scratch it. So I think just finding moments to, make time for yourselves and keep things lighthearted and, special, because, it's very mechanical and scientific and, not romantic. I'm pretty sure the doctor was talking about our shoes when he did the transfer. So
I think that would be my biggest shock of it all, is like how much time, or at least like the journey that we took, how much time and patience took into getting to that moment of transfer. And the transfer was like, it took 5 seconds, and the appointment was like 10 minutes, and you're like, I don't know, I was like hoping for it to be more.
Like the grand finale.
Yeah, like, this is it. And then he's just, I think he commented about Stevie's Converse that she was wearing, and he's like, all right, you're pregnant. So we're like, okay, so I guess you're pregnant now. Like, okay.
Cooper, or whatever.
Pregnant
till proven otherwise.
Can I have some confetti or something?
I mean, the nurses were beautiful. They're like, do you want a photo at the front? And it was the 4th of July, which is like Michelle being American, so a big celebration. And so we got a photo done and whatnot. But
it was so strange.
the whole just having a third person in the room when you get pregnant, just a bit weird.
It's not what the prescription said, right?
No.
Throughout the entire process, because so many members of the queer community speak repeatedly about care teams and people that they come across, especially through this journey that is stereotypically very heterosexual, have there been times throughout it that you've been made to feel as though you were the other, or insignificant, or not important, or not doing what was right or expected?
No, I think we were really lucky with our facility. We weren't the first queer couple to walk through their doors. The nurses, they get to know you by name. They're really personable. Like, when we went in after my period of being in menopause, essentially the medication had done its job too well, and my body wasn't responding at all, and we were just waiting for me to ovulate, essentially, and it just wasn't. And then we finally went for a scan, and they're like, your lining's beautiful, you've got 1 follicle, like, you're ready to go. And we were celebrating so hard that the nurses thought we were pregnant. Like, they were just like, oh my gosh, is it that time already? And we're like, no, like, we're just ready for transfer. Like, they were just really, really beautiful with us. And I don't know, did you ever get made to feel any sort of way? Oh, a couple of medical issues, I guess. They mixed up our details a couple of times because we have the same last name, so married.
Yeah, I guess that would be my two things. Well, was at first our obstetrician was not in favor of us doing reciprocal IVF, and I've been told other people around Adelaide are kind of pushed away from doing the reciprocal IVF because he was like very, I guess, like cautious and risk adverse, and was telling us, but he basically told us, or at least the way my head took it, was that we were like guaranteed for Stevie to get preeclampsia and have a preemie baby because we were doing reciprocal IVF, which neither of those happened. We had like the most beautiful home birth in my mind, and Stevie had 0 complications, but he was very much against us going that way. He was very, I guess it was nice that he was open, but maybe not cautious of his words, to where he like had a conversation before we picked a donor, as well as like, I don't mean any offense by this, but like, don't pick your gay guy best friend. I've seen that go wrong so many times. And I was like, okay, we're also not doing that either, but like, thanks for your opinion, even though like, so that was definitely a bit interesting to go through. And then I didn't feel that confident going into my egg collection, because I guess I don't think they had done a lot of same-sex IVF, because they had all of Stevie's medical history going through the questionnaire, even up to like them telling me how many eggs they were going to predict to get wasn't matching with kind of like the follicles that I had like seen during my scans. And that put me off, to where there was moments even when Ziggy was born, to where I was like, did they transfer the right embryo? Because were they going to transfer her embryo? Mine, so it was questionable for a while. So I think that obviously is not going to happen in a hetero couple. So it did. There was moments, I guess, where you kind of got, the complications that arose were not normal. Or comments being made weren't very, I don't know the word to use, maybe like friendly, shall we say. But overall, I still think our experience was pretty good.
How does it work in Australia with a 2-mom family? Are both of you able to be on the birth certificate? And if you are, does that carry any weight? I know in Canada, 2 moms on the birth certificate, you don't need anything else. We don't need to do a second parent adoption or anything here. Whereas in many parts of the US, you can both be on the birth certificate, but that doesn't really mean anything. You still need to go through the legal process of adopting your own child, which I just want to bang my head against the wall about. But
no, we are both on the birth certificate. I'm mother and Michelle is co-parent.
It wasn't sad that you had to draw a line through, so
no, but that isn't that sad that we get to celebrate co-parent, like, we took Ziggy to a chiropractor, and because he just cries in the car, hates it. And the form that we had to fill out said mother blank, father blank, so I crossed it out and wrote mother, and they apologized, bless them, and addressed it. But it's just it's a drop down box. I'm sure you can add mother to it, but look, we're happy that we're both on there.
And in Australia, I don't think we don't need to legally do any other things, but because I am from America and trying to get Ziggy his American citizenship now, since I'm listed as the co-parent, then we have to like provide additional evidence to show that we're like legally married, to then provide them with evidence that like Ziggy is our child. And there's other, I guess, steps we have to add there to get his New Zealand and American citizenship.
I had to prove that I was the one that carried Ziggy. Had to provide extra documentation just so that we could get his passport. So I mean, we had stuff that we have on hand, but it's certainly things that heteros don't have to go through. So
it's just frustrating. When you're starting your path, was there any one person or professional that you wish that you had a chance to pick the brain of, to learn more from, so that it would feel like you had the answers that you were going to need to have answers to?
I don't think so. I think we had to go through 2 counseling sessions just to make sure that we knew the implications of having a donor conceived child. We knew how to have that language incorporated into a household and things like that. But I think it was just like a go with the flow situation.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad that I spoke up at work and spoke to our fertility specialist was operating, and I asked a few questions, and that's what like sort of sparked and prompted the endometriosis surgery. So I'm glad that happened, because most people, he basically told us if we don't have insurance to cover it, just go straight into a round of IVF, because it's going to cost the same amount if you're not insured. Thankfully, we were both insured, and had we not had that surgery, we don't know what the quality of our eggs would have been like. We don't know if we would have had a successful pregnancy, or if it would have implanted. So, yeah, I guess.
I think we're pretty lucky, since Stevie worked in the field and had kind of a working relationship. So he was very, it was nice. And I guess if anybody doesn't have it, like, just ask the questions, because I need to understand the impact of a decision that I'm going to make, what that impacts and how that plays out, to where like I had, like Steve said, I had stage 3 endo, but I had like silent endo, so I wouldn't have even thought that I had it. I didn't really think it bothered me as much, and this and that, and so I didn't care to have the surgery necessarily. But then him kind of explaining, okay, well, endometriosis and impacts your egg quality, and I was like, okay, still. And then like understanding what the endo means and how that impacts my body and how that impacts the egg quality, and then how that impacts fertilization with the embryos, and even the impact of like whether you want to freeze your eggs or freeze embryos, and how the quality of an egg like is it like a half-life or something once you like freeze it and then thaw it out and then refreezes it, and how that is going to impact your quality. So he was we were lucky that he was very forthcoming with not a lot of prompting for us to understand that process, but I could easily see how not everybody is going to have that same journey. So since I was able to see that, he was even able to like print some numbers to say like, this is somebody that's had surgery, this was the eggs, then they didn't have the surgery. So it made it very clear the impact of having kind of the steps that we took make sense for us. But if you don't understand something, or you don't understand why they're suggesting something, like, just ask the questions, because you don't want to walk away, especially spending that much money and still not really understanding what you're agreeing to, or the impact of your decisions, what it's going to have down the road. So
yeah, and I think it gets frustrating for us. We've got friends that are going down the IVF path, and like, we just want the best outcome for them. There are people that we know that are going through like multiple cycles, and we're like, oh, well, have you looked into this? And their specialist may not have even brought it up. So it's I guess knowledge is power, and just passing on our knowledge is what's important. It's like, get the outcomes that people desire. And yeah,
absolutely, knowledge is power. I mean, we get taught that as a young person, and this is a prime example of it, being able to share your wisdom through life experience with your peers, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
As we wrap up, can you tell me, what is your very, very favorite part of parenting?
Oh.
I love the smile on your face, Michelle. You just shoot big smile, just
It's because I'm very sleep deprived, and I let her know it this morning.
Yeah, no, I don't know. That's a good question. Favorite, I think it's all the first, I guess. Like, I don't know, it's only been 3 months, and to like watch this little spot of a being now be able to like stretch its arms now, now he had kind of his first laugh yesterday.
It was his first laugh, I'm claiming it.
I don't know, it's so cool to like see them develop, or how like you can tell the direct impact of the way you're behaving around them impacts their mood. And like, it's so nice to just be able to like talk to them, and then they giggle or smile at you, and you really realize the impact that you are having on raising this being. And I don't know, Stevie and I chat about it a lot, but just like reminding ourselves, even on the hard days, like, he's only going to be small for so little, and some days are just really not great. Like, there's some days that you're like, we need some payback for this, man. Like, what are you gonna do for us when you're older? Because this is
You're an
tough.
investment.
That's right.
It's I don't know, it's just all the little moments really, but
Yeah. And I think like Michelle and I, we always check ourselves together and separately and check our parenting as well. And I've made it known pretty early on that like it's not our job to own these children, it's our job to guide them. Like one day we're gonna have to let them go. So I think just making sure that, you know, we raise good humans together and hopefully watch that come to fruition. Our 5-year-old has us questioning things, but but you know, I don't know. I think it's fun doing it together for sure. Because I was a single mum for 2 years before I met Michelle, so it's nice having, you know, that partnership and having beautiful pregnancy and support and being there for one another while going through the craziness of parenthood, I think. But yeah, watching them grow is definitely a favorite part.
and I'd even add like obviously the baby themselves, but it's also been really cool to be able to see Stevie and like I don't know, there's some tough nights when you like I don't know, you can let parenting separate you, you can let it bring you together, and I think it's really nice to acknowledge the sacrifices. We're just watching her lay there exhausted, you know, it's just she hates it, but it's like dang, like that sacrifice, you know, and like you're doing that for our family, and that's a lot. Like that takes a lot because I am not the best parent at night, and I don't do a bunch of things at night, and I acknowledge that.
She's really not good on minimal sleep.
But it's also awesome then to watch your partner and like see the sacrifices or watch them play with the kid in bed and see the joy on their face, especially when you think of times like before you had the kid and you know you're just going through life in and out of work and it just gets very laissez-faire. Now you're able to have this kind of love bubble all over again of seeing the joy that nothing else in the world can bring on your partner's face. It's really lovely.
That's very true and a pretty great way to say thank you very much for joining me today. You both are just adorable and you don't look super sleep deprived with a 3-month-old. So
we've been in the sun.
There you go. Just a little sun kiss.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Thank you for sharing your story. You're an inspiration. Appreciate it. Thank you for joining me today on the Becoming Baby Ready podcast. If you have a story that you'd like to share, or you know someone who might, if you're a professional who works in the capacity of helping people start and grow their families, and you identify as being a part of the 2S LGBTQIA+ community yourself, then please don't hesitate to reach out. We always have room for more stories to share, and there's always more learning to do.